Hey everyone, so today I am finally doing the video about all of the Anastasia products, the Anastasia brow products that I received several months ago, from the Dipbrow pomade, the Brow Wiz pencil, to the, I'm going to show you the palette a little bit, but mainly the eyebrow powders. So whatever formula that you're into, or whatever formula you're curious about, hopefully you can kind of find out some more information on them. I'm going to demonstrate all of them and sort of give you the pros and cons of them and how I use them. But I'm going to mainly sort of show you that all three can be used to create the same look. So you don't need to think that one is used for a super defined look or one is used for a softer look. You can really do whatever brow look you like with whichever formula you're comfortable with. So I'm going to kind of show you that, how I do mine. It's nothing super groundbreaking. I already have pretty good eyebrows in the first place, but honestly mine need a lot because they can look very squarely. That's a nice word, I guess. They can look pretty all over the place, and for me I like a defined look that is soft around the edges, because if you have darker brows like me, you know you kind of need to go lighter with your tones. I usually even use like products that are called blonde or light brown. You don't match them exactly to like a dark brown or whatever eyebrow product if you have darker brows. And then on the other hand, if you have blonde brows, it's good to maybe even stick with the blonde if you want just a really, you know, soft look. But if you want to deepen them a bit, then that's where you can sort of go into the medium browns or the light browns. And then if you've got darker skin tones, that's where the darker colors come in, or the darker shades. So there's a shade for everyone. That is the most important part of any brow product, is getting your shade right, knowing your shade, and getting comfortable with using the particular product that you like. So on one of my brows I used the pencil and the powder, and then on the other brow I used the pomade. So you can't really tell. I can tell because I can feel which one is the pomade because it dries a little stiffer. But there's pros and cons of all of them. So I'm going to be showing you how I do mine. Nothing super groundbreaking, just how I like to do my brows. I will be giving my final thoughts of all the products at the end, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. Alright, so my brows are definitely good to start with. It's not like I'm having to paint them on or anything, but a lot of times when you have even darker brows like myself, it makes it even more difficult sometimes because they look sort of beastly and they can go every different direction, and it is a good idea to sort of make them more smooth without making them look crazy and thick and overboard. So a lot of times what I like to do, and the first product that I'm going to kind of show you, is just use a powder. The first thing that I do is use a brush like the number 12. This is my favorite brush. This one is a little more stiff, and this is a Anastasia brush, and I flip it over to the spoolie side, and my brows have the sort of tendency to go in like that, which is fine, but I sort of like them to go more toward the middle so that it looks a little more natural, because nothing else really grows in the middle right there other than just like little blonde brows. So I always comb them like this, and I have a scar right here on this one. I'll show you what I do with that in a moment. And then I just sort of lightly comb it up. Now you can definitely trim your brows as well, and some people might say, okay, you need to trim your brows because look at all that. But if I did that right now, it would almost make them look too thin. And you see now, when I comb them like that, they look pretty good. If I trimmed them like super short, like say if I trimmed them like to this line, then when I comb them down, it would sort of give them this spiky, weird, not so soft appearance. So I definitely always wait to trim my brows until there's a lot more overgrowth. For the powder, I'm going to use this Anastasia brow palette. You definitely don't need this as an individual. It's really awesome if you're like a professional makeup artist, but just for me, myself, and I using this, I do reach for some of the colors for different things, so it is kind of nice, but mostly I just use this taupe shade, the darker shade of that, and I use the medium brown. Sometimes the soft brown too, I forgot to mention that. I don't really use the primer, which is almost like what some companies would call like a brow wax. I don't find that it really does anything. I think that these are pretty long lasting on their own. If you wanted to like actually tint your brows, like if you wanted the color to actually cling to the hair, then you could like do a quick swipe of that. My brows are already pretty dark. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in any obvious gaps, and I'm going to do that with this darker shade of the medium brown. The medium brown is very ashy in tone, and you can see that just barely fills that in. But I don't want to go too crazy because I want to keep a natural look. Then I take that same powder and just sort of smooth along the upper edge of the brow. And take the lighter half of the taupe and make just a little tail. You can see that really smoothed everything. It took 2 seconds and it looks really natural. And then you can take that light shade too that you used for the tail and sort of comb it more toward the center. You can do a line, you can do whatever you want. It's your eyebrows and you should be comfortable, but I don't really like that look. I like to just sort of, if you've got the brows there, you can just actually use your brows. And then if you don't, it is going to obviously look like a line no matter how great you do it, but if that's okay and you don't mind looking like they're painted on, then that's fine. But I just always stick to a more natural look where brows are concerned. And then you can sort of comb everything to make sure that there's no weirdness. And sometimes I like a more defined arch, so I will do just a little bit more along the top. I never define this under part. I think it just looks more natural to me when I do the top part because they sort of grow downward like that. And then I just sort of comb it up like that. That to me is a really good natural brow. Same exact steps go if you have lighter brows or anything like that. You can definitely make them look great like that too. You can also, if you want a little bit more of a defined look, you can use a pencil. You can do that before or after the powder. A lot of times I would do that before the powder, but I did want to show you what the powder can do on its own. But I like this Brow Wiz, and this is in the shade Ash Blonde, which is I think one of the lightest shades, if not the lightest shade, and it's what works for me. Like I said, don't match your brows, you'll be surprised. You can take the pencil and you can lightly fill in around the bottom part of your brows. You can use this to fill in any of the gaps that we did with the powder. You can take it and just in tiny little strokes almost make little hairs right there. And then you can do the same thing that I did up there. So if I hadn't have done the powder already, you could have done that. You can definitely use just the powder or just the pencil, whatever you want to do. And I love that this has a spoolie on the end of it, by the way. But sometimes you can combine them. If you're really, really doing a filled in look, you can sort of trace the outer edge with it. Like, I don't have to do that so much, but you know, you can start down there and then you can do just a little bit darker right here. I would not make this dark at all. So you want to do it dark here. You'd fill it in dark up here, but I've already done that, so it kind of just creates the same look. And then with your shadow, you could go in and fill the middle, kind of going straight up from that pencil, and it sort of blends the pencil all at the same time. So there's just a ton of different options. You really need to just play around with it, and sometimes you can just use one or the other. Some people really strongly prefer a pencil, some people strongly prefer a powder. For me, a lot of times, I just feel like the powder looks more natural, so that's just easier for me. But you can see how even though I applied a ton of products just showing you, it still looks soft, it still looks pretty. So for this one, we're done. I'll put on some gel and call it a day. Another product that everyone is really, really buzzing about lately is the brow pomade, and I use the shade Blonde, which is the lightest shade. This is the Dipbrow. I find that it's better if you use a softer brush like the number 7 by Anastasia. It's a little wider, it's a little thinner, and it's just softer. Now this is a very like moussey type product, and it is very, very soft. So you have to be super careful when you get your brush in it. And my main tip with this, and what I would do the same as I did with my brows on this side, is first I would comb them. And then for this, I actually start on the under half, because this can look really intense, and I don't want to see that huge intense line up there. So I start underneath and just make sure that you've got a good, like, you know, that it looks smooth. And then I take the rest of it up top. You can see how it looks, you know, I've already wiped off most of it under here. So you can see how soft it looks. So next what I do is I sort of just use the spoolie and, you know, just sort of readjust my brows. But the problem with this is that it's very wet right away. It takes a second for it to set. So if you immediately start using your spoolie, you can get that waterproof formula on your spoolie, and then it can end up transferring to your skin around it, and it is really hard to remove. So then after a couple seconds, you can just sort of smooth through it like that. And your brush should still be slightly damp, so if it doesn't look super smooth, you can go back and smooth it and do whatever you need to do. And I like to also use that time to add a little bit of length on the end. Sometimes that can be really flattering. Just a little bit though. And then also, without re-dipping when it's slightly damp, you can do this inner part. You'll be surprised at how much you can get out of one dip. You can see it's still transferring very softly. Just make sure everything is really smooth. You can see it's sort of similar. I got a slightly darker effect with this just because I was using darker powders. I could use a darker pomade, but I have done that before, and the shade darker than this is way too dark for me. You could definitely use this to trace out your brows if you really just don't have any, or you have a lot softer looking brows. But I think that if your brows are a certain shape, you should sort of embrace that. Because a lot of times if you go way outside of that, it's gonna look really fake. And then the double-ended pencil, I'll show you that quickly. That's another product that I have. I like to use the Matte Camille. And you see how much of a difference that made. It's just really pretty. There's also a shimmery end, but I find myself using the Matte Camille for this most of the time. Okay, so some final thoughts. The pencil I would use in conjunction with the powder, or if you used it by itself, I would definitely take care to blend it out, because sometime I know if I use it on this top part, I can look in the mirror later, like after my brows have moved around, or just if I like, you know, didn't comb it through enough or blend it enough, it looks like a line. So a lot of times that's why I just prefer to use the powder. It's easy. The pencil will require a ton more blending, but if you are trying to get that really precise look, then the pencil is the way to go. The brow pomade, definitely use with a sort of a thinner, softer, springier brush. I love this one with it, the number 7. And between the two, I really like the way the pomade looks, I think. It's just so slight, like you can't even tell a difference, but I do like the way the pomade looks, and it will last all day. If you didn't wash it off, it would probably last for 2 days, although I wouldn't recommend that. And then of course, the palette is wonderful, but also they come in little individuals, which is great too. You definitely don't need that palette, but it is a cool thing to have if you do makeup on other people, because it's literally everything that you need. So definitely take the formula that you want. It's proof that you can create any look with any formula. Some might be better than others, but once you get used to it, you can definitely make the pencil look softer or make the pomade look less painted on. So there's definitely ways to go with whatever formula that you prefer. So if you are interested in any of these products, I will link all of them below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Bye.